Welcome to Pittman and Friends, the curiously probing, sometimes awkward, but always revealing conversations between your host, Anne Arundel County Executive Stuart Pittman, that's me, and whatever brave and willing public servant, community leader, or elected official I can find who has something to say that you should hear. This podcast is provided as a public service of Anne Arundel County, so don't expect me to get all partisan here. This is about the age-old art of government, of, by, and for the people. I'm here today with the man who is tasked with making our county resilient. His name is Matt Fleming, and his title is Executive Director of the Annapolis and Anne Arundel County Resilience Authority. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you. I am optimistic about being Conan O'Brien. I'm sorry, wrong podcast, but optimistic about being Stuart Pittman's Resilience Authority Director. So thanks for having me.
All right. Anne Arundel County and Annapolis. I like to switch them, actually. You know, I think you have Annapolis first, but I think Anne Arundel County is the most important part of that, but I won't talk to the mayor about that. So, all right. We need to get to the question of what the Resilience Authority actually does and what we mean by resilience. But first, I want to know what brought you to this job. So tell us the story. Okay. You can start wherever you want, maybe with education, but wherever you think's relevant.
Okay. All right, I'll go way back. So growing up, I lived overseas, and up until about 6th grade. I think the majority of the time there I spent in Saudi Arabia. And, thinking back to that time, as you can imagine, desert, all the buildings were gray, so it's certainly a certain image there. And then every weekend my dad would take us to camp on the little islands in the Red Sea. And I can, every time, go up under the water. I can remember the color of the coral, the fish, and just being blown away by that. And I remember, and leaving that, I was like, okay, I know what it is, but I want to be somehow connected to kind of ocean management around that aspect of it.
Water.
Yeah.
How old were you when you left?
I guess I left in midway between 5th and 6th grade.
Okay.
So, of course, like every kid, you're like, oh, I want to be a marine biologist. So that was kind of my brain for a while. Fast forward that a bit, I guess, back in the States now, we would vacation in North Carolina, and always on the Outer Banks, we surfed and fished, this and that, in Cape Hatteras. And one year we went down there, and there were all these signs up about the piping plover. And I just remember going into stores, kill the plover or save the plover, and I had no clue what a plover was. And I remember driving out on the beach, and the beach was closed off. And then I come to learn it's a federally endangered species and so on. And then I'm like, okay, that makes sense, protect the birds. Mm-hmm. As I started learning more and listening to the community, you hear about, the economic impact of it, fishermen who couldn't make a living, people that rented equipment couldn't make a living, people not coming certain times of the year. And that's when I was like, okay, click. There's like that idea of balancing these multiple uses. Like, I don't know what it is, but I want to be involved in that. So in college, I connected that.
So that was how old?
That would have been in high school right up through into college.
Okay.
So that's when I made the connection into being around the ocean, and then somehow making that connection of how do you balance the wise use of and the conservation of our coastal resources, which then led to my college and then led me to the Department of Natural Resources. So that's how I got involved in coastal management, was at the Department of Resources for about 25 years.
Right here in Maryland.
Right here in Maryland.
Okay.
Yeah, and actually, quick story on that. When I left college, there were 2 coastal programs in the country.
Where'd you go to college?
I went to University of Maryland. I went to Binghamton and then finished up at University of Maryland, Binghamton, New York. And then there were 2 just across the country, like these are the 2 leaders in the country. It was Maryland and Massachusetts. And just a kind of a credit to my old boss is, I cold called, I stopped in Massachusetts, tried to meet the program, met a few folks, did the same thing at DNR, and the secretary, John Griffin at the time, met with me, toured me around DNR, talked about his vision, and I was like, okay, that's where I want to work. So I spent 25 years there, involved in coastal management, which then led me to Anne Arundel County. So after 25 years, it was.
So tell us what your position was at the end.
So at the very end, so I worked my way up. At the very end, I finished up as the Director of Aquatic Resources, so responsible for the whole water side of the agency. So boating, fishing, bay restoration programs, climate, monitoring, and such.
Okay. And we knew about you. Chris Trumbauer, I think in particular, who's now our budget officer, was a river keeper, was a councilman. He certainly knew about you. And, go ahead, finish your story.
No, because I was going to apologize if they knew about me. I think it was Matt Power, who I worked with a little bit at the state.
Right.
He was at the Department of Plan time, and then certainly Chris.
Yeah, he was deputy secretary of planning, and then he was our chief administrative officer here in the county. We hired him first to do land use work, and then became our chief administrative officer.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Okay, so that was part of the connection.
Yes. So they reached out. Certainly it was a difficult decision. The timing was tough because you were also going through potential
to be the director of the Resilience Authority, right?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, and
which was a brand new creation.
First in the country.
Yeah. Well, the first of there's a debate over that, but pretty close to first.
Yeah, I can defend that one a little bit. But,
okay. And we had to get state authorization to do it. Senator Elfreth, I think, helped to move a bill that gave us the authority to create a resilience authority.
Correct.
And then we put it into our budget. We actually did not get a unanimous vote on this. It was somewhat controversial to create the Resilience Authority, and then we put into the budget the money to hire staff to get it going, and then we needed somebody. And how did you hear about it?
So I did see the advertisement, and the folks who were doing the running the interview pool, they reached out to me. Okay. Both, I think Jackie Giles at the city sent it to me. Certainly, Chris sent it to me. Like, hey, you should think about applying. I was not actively looking. Very content. I had spent almost a full career at DNR, and then started thinking about it a little bit more and meeting more members of both your team and the city's team. I was like, all right, you know what? This could be pretty cool. This could be something that could be a great opportunity. We've always worked with Anne Arundel. In my prior role at DNR, I worked a lot in Anne Arundel County. I met Eric Michelson, who's leads your Bureau of Watershed Protection and Restoration, or Bureau of Restoration Watershed Protection. You guys have always been an incubator for a lot of innovative.
So it was the best place for all you wanted to work here. Come on, just say it. We're the best place for all, and you wanted to work here.
Definitely. I had a long partnership with some of your departments. Some wonderful people.
Let's just be honest, right? You didn't know if I was going to get reelected, and therefore you didn't know whether the Resilience Authority was going to have a future, right. And you didn't accept the job.
Not yet. I would say I delayed on accepting the job.
You delayed, yeah.
Again,
but we managed to get it started. Yeah. We brought in
Dan East with Throw Environmental.
Yeah, Dan East Throw Environmental, and they knew that their time was temporary to get it started. They created the board, the basic structure of it, and then miraculously I got reelected, and then you came over. So you've been here for what, 2 years?
About 18 months, yeah, almost a full 2 years, yeah.
Okay,
but I really do. I think that it's certainly I didn't know you. I knew a lot of folks in your team. I think my biggest fear, even though I think the idea of helping communities prepare for climate change, helping this county make a transition to renewable energy, and I think those are apolitical issues, and especially if you're doing as you envisioned and doing it, helping to relieve some of the tax burden. Helping to relieve the tax burden on the county where you can by bringing outside resources. Yeah. I think that would have survived. Mm-hmm. But the idea of trying to start something new with an entire new team trying to figure out how to govern, mm-hmm. I think that's the part that was giving me hesitation. Right. But I think at the end of the day, the idea, and this sounds not like my personality, hopefully you guys have seen this, is, I'm the projects speak for themselves. I'm not somebody that likes to take credit. I love working with a team. But the idea of this Resilience Authority, and almost like I'm creative, and almost like a director where your name's associated with it, I think that was the part like, all right,
you want to create the monster.
Yeah, I want to do this.
Yeah, or the savior, I should say. And I don't think there's anybody at this point who voted against it who would want to get rid of it now, because we can get into this, but y'all have raised a heck of a lot of money. How much?
$43 million.
$43 million of outside money, federal, state mostly, and that's money that we wouldn't have. We didn't have a Resilience Authority. What is it? Tell us how it's structured and what it actually does, And what's the scope of resilience? We hear that word all the time, and what is included in resilience?
Okay, yeah, great question. And actually, when we were in Sweden last week, I read this whole idea of resilience authority and resilience authority director. We were going around the room introducing ourselves.
Yeah, for listeners who don't know, we were in Sweden last week, and we'll get to that. Pretty cool.
Sorry.
And you managed a lot of the trip.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
But we would do our introductions, and you could see people, I'm the transportation director, I'm the county executive, I'm the mayor. And we go to, I'm the resilience authority director, and you hear like the record scratch. Be like, what's that?
What?
Yeah, so I appreciate the question. So first, resilience, the way I look at resilience and the way we look at it is it calls us to rethink about the systems supply our energy, our transportation, food, water, and housing.
Okay, so it's not just resilience to the impacts of climate change.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think to that question, I think it has a transformative power. And what I mean by that is it not only calls us to, upon us to plan for the current and future impacts of a changing climate and to mitigate those risks. It doesn't have to be fatalistic, and projects that we undertake, they can seize the opportunity to build on the strength of a community, and hopefully eradicate some of the inequities we've seen in the past. And my hope is that you'll see that in our current project portfolio, but certainly as we build out a future project portfolio. So that's my definition of resilience, and that's how we discuss it within the board. So as far as go ahead,
and it's a financing mechanism too. I mean, it's Absolutely. A pretty complicated thing. Any kind of, like a redevelopment authority is a way to get some things off of the books of the capital budget for a government, and you manage to find who the stakeholders are that are going to benefit by a specific project. And right now, it's largely federal money because it exists, but it could be private sector investment, correct. Right? It could be anything. So we haven't had to go to the taxpayers yet.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, no, I think that. To that point, that singular focus on resilience and helping the county prepare for the climate impacts, allows us to specialize approaches to address these challenges and to kind of design projects and the financing around them with that goal in mind. Again, I'll use another example. Other programs have certain drivers, and I'll go back to my good buddy Eric Michelson. You take the Jabez floodplain.
So Eric Michelson runs the Watershed Protection and Restoration, which is the funds from the stormwater fees that people pay.
Correct. And so that program, and he does an amazing job with it.
Yeah, he's the best anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's always helped push the envelope. In my time with DNR, where they were trying to do things beyond kind of that specific mandate where you could build in habitat, we were trying to figure out how to support those with other grants. Mm-hmm. But that program and Eric's program has a specific mandate, and that's how do you address this, the stormwater requirements, and how do you do that in the most cost-effective way. And when you look at Jabez, to look at this under the resilience lens, we were able to kind of advance this idea of climate-ready restoration. So how could we, use some of the mitigation, some of the stormwater funds. Mm-hmm. How do we also incorporate some of the Bay TMDL funds, because there's a nutrient ecosystem benefit there? How do you incorporate, we got habitat funds from NOAA, and then, transportation dollars. How do you mitigate the potential impacts to transportation to 97 and 32 there? So you're able to kind of pull together, I think that's a unique nature, just on stitching together different fund sources, that we're able to make a project move forward that if you just looked under a specific project mandate, it might not have. And I think, we have a...
So this is restoring the stream. It starts, I know, is the Navy Dairy Farm where it begins, or it goes through there?
It actually goes almost all the way up to the top part of the county. Jabez does.
Okay.
This branch...
Okay. And it goes to Severn River, right?
Severn River, yeah.
Okay.
And this one stretch is just below the 32 interchange. And, just addressing it as a stormwater issue wouldn't have happened. So it's about
because of the highway.
Yeah. Yep. And just really restoring the floodplain itself.
Great.
So
good. So let me jump to Sweden real quick.
Okay.
What moved you about what you saw there? I mean, clearly, they are way ahead of us on reducing carbon emissions, sustainable economic development. We saw a lot of that. Is that resilience, and what what changed? What clicked in your mind that you might be able to bring home?
Yeah, I mean, well, certainly mitigating, greenhouse gas emissions that contribute to climate change. That's in our wheelhouse. Okay. So that is a focus of ours.
So, like the county's working on their plan, and I know you're working on a plan for locating solar.
Correct.
And I know that you're now probably gotten involved in our efforts to go electric on the county fleet.
Correct.
So
yeah, and even like where we can do projects to incorporate green infrastructure that sequester carbon, even looking at soil amendments that do the same. So trying to incorporate that into our project designs. But the economic development piece is a good question. Because, I think one of the things I walked away from in Sweden is just how they just showed that transformative power of resilience. You take the possibilities that they demonstrated around renewable energy development, the advancements of new carbon-friendly building technology, rethinking what we saw when we were in Sweden. We saw an old port that was dedicated to oil and gas and coal storage, and how that they've moved off of that and how they've rethought those spaces, and kind of, again, building with sustainability and resilience as the lens that they were doing that in, and the demand from the consumer, how people wanted those office spaces, they wanted to live in those houses, and just that piece of it and how they integrated all those parts to it.
The demand from the consumer, and I was really shocked that there was also demand from companies, from developers, real estate developers. We learned about, one of the first speakers was actually an economist, remember, and she talked about the cost of inaction and how she's working actually all over the world. Is the Stockholm Environmental Institute,
which I hope to build off of that as one of the first key takeaways.
Yeah. No, again, I know it gave some of us ideas for research that we could do here to sort of measure the benefits, the economic benefits. But there was a developer that was talking about the circular development strategies, right, where they reuse things from buildings that are being taken down, and then one example was they were complaining to the city that they were requiring an extra lane for cars in front of this big store, this big building, and they said, no, we need one less lane for cars, we need bikes and pedestrian, because they've understand what the market is doing, and it was kind of cool to see that, and to see that some of the work that we do to facilitate the sustainability is for the government to get out of the way, as opposed to have to invest money. So
and I think the very clear goals that were laid out by the city or the government, like this is what we want to achieve, and the buy-in from the private sector as well as the community, like, okay, we get it. It's not like we have to do it. We want to do it, and that really kind of translated in both the two cities that we had a chance to visit.
And I will guarantee that. I mean, the fact that we had state level, county level, and city level, it's really clear to me that there's going to be action as a result of this, and we're working on a list of things, and we're going to be presenting all of that. Can you say something about City Dock? Because I'm a big fan of what they're doing there to address flooding and raise City Dock, but also create a space that's a public space and exciting and fun for families and visitors and all of that. Are you involved in that?
Yeah, so funny, going back to our earliest comment about were we the first, there's some debate on that, is that project was actually the impetus for the Resilience Authority idea. When I was with DNR, there was a study that we did about doing a financing stress test with the University of Maryland to look at, can the city truly address its climate issues? Mm-hmm. So they looked through how can they, do they have the funding in place? Do they have the strategies in place, the structures in place to do it? So in that study, it came to the thinking, kind of rethinking the parking garage, mm-hmm, how to make that connection, and also thinking about, is there a structure to help manage the funding in a way that can take on these massive projects? So we were involved in some of that stage. Certainly, I'm not taking credit for it. We can look at the clip, but
they came up with something pretty complicated. They redid the crumbling parking garage, and that's part of the City Dock financing system that they've set up. They seem to have a really big FEMA grant on the way, and that's going to fund a lot of it. And they've gotten a lot of outside money. I got to hand it to the mayor. He knows how to raise money. He doesn't stop begging, I could say.
Yeah, he's good.
to get money to the city of Annapolis, because they can't just raise their taxes. They're already higher than the rest of the county. They can't get away with that.
So So from that initial study, we haven't they have an incredible team in place, and certainly the mayor as a leader of that. But their public works director, their emergency management department, like they've been raising dollars for this. So I don't think they're all the way there. So I think they're looking to us to help to see
Very
if
close.
we can, very close, if we can figure out how to close any potential gaps. So we're providing support, helping to look in some other potential funding opportunities as this project moves forward. So
Good.
I am. I appreciate you said the piece about making they could build a wall around that. That's not taking advantage of what's truly unique about that place. So creating a place that reactivates it.
Yep.
Urban places. Urban places, public places for people to connect with water, to connect with themselves.
Okay, so here's one I know you're working on that is exactly that, Glen Burnie Town Center. What's that got to do with resilience?
Absolutely. And that's where, it's kind of leading into that is, I really do think these urban centers, while certainly they can concentrate risk, they really can be kind of incubators for solutions. And I am really excited about Glen Burnie. We're working, with one of our first portfolio projects, the town center. And, being from natural resource side, you don't get to work in urban environments that often. And you always knew that was a missing part of our portfolio. So having the opportunity to truly take stock of the physical environment and the social environment that's there and build on the strength. So, can we de-seal the environment? Can we look at trying to get rid of impervious surface there? Can we create access to green space in that community where it doesn't exist? Can we also create that as a space where you can connect that community to bike trail routes, as a hub, going north or south, and
it's right by the trail.
And it's just, you think of, getting people out of cars, and
it's also just a few blocks from the Cromwell end of the light rail that goes to Baltimore.
And helping people make that connection, like where they are and where they are connected to the Chesapeake Bay, and how taking care of their own environment. So I
think that area is going to take off.
I do too.
Yeah. So here's another one. You've actually been working with Fort Meade. And I know there's a long history with the Naval Academy, but what's going on at Fort Meade Resilience? They're not on the water.
Yeah, right. So certainly, resilience is not just a coastal issue. I think, stormwater flooding, road impacts, and even getting into things like emergency evacuation. Like looking at, how that community can handle if there's an issue that they need to evacuate, do we have the road infrastructure that they can safely evacuate? So that is something that we'll be working with Fort Meade on. It's called a Military Installation Resilience Review. So it's a partnership with DOD, Fort Meade, and the county to look at what actions that we can take outside of the base walls that can make the operations on the base more resilient, but the community outside of the base more resilient. So we'll be looking at everything from potentially housing to roads to communication infrastructure. I think, again, there's the resource that's there at Fort Meade, I think there's a lot of interest nationally. I think it's a great opportunity.
Good. And I know that the Navy's been at the forefront of it. In fact, I was there at the Naval Academy just a couple of weeks ago when they did ribbon cutting, I guess you could say, their wall that is important along with the raising of City Dock. And they talk about it like they talk about it in Sweden. It's part of the way they do business. It's part of national defense, and they've been doing it for a long time. Okay, I have one last question. Okay. You've been at this for 2 years now, or a year and, what did you say? A little more than a year and a half.
18 months, I'm making it sound less.
Okay.
There's more I need to get done in 2 years.
I guess, has it been what you expected it to be, and have you achieved what you set out to do in that first period of time?
So I hope so. So one of the things, one of my initial goals was I spent 25 years with a team, and I knew how to get things done with the team, being a part of a team. And one of my goals is how could I get, is to be integrated into a new team. And I was blown away by how quickly your departments, your own team members, embrace this idea, welcome me, help me kind of work through some of the initial struggles. I know you challenged me, how do we create a model for other communities, not just here in Anne Arundel County and for the city of Annapolis. And I do think that we have a very strong framework in place. And I know that from the demand for me to go to, I've probably spoken now to about 8 or 9 counties in Maryland. We've been sharing all of our policies, bylaws, so they can help set up their resilience. So I think that goal of like, let's be a model here.
Are there some others that are popping up?
I would say there's some other ones that are thinking.
I know Charles County is the other one. They also say they're first. So, and I think they were in some ways. We're the first multi-jurisdictional for sure.
Correct.
With Annapolis.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, I think they beat us to the punch. But who else is coming?
I don't want to. It's a
secret. Trade secrets.
I'll let them announce it. Yeah, I'll let them announce it. But certainly, there's been about 3 or 4 on the Eastern Shore, and probably about 4 or 5 on the Western Shore that have reached out, and one from Pennsylvania and one from Virginia.
Hey, they're probably the same ones that are going to be part of our cool ferry network that goes all around the Chesapeake. The 5-county coalition.
That's some good guessing.
Yeah, nobody believes me, but it's happening.
Certainly, try to create a demand for this work. Mm-hmm. I thought we were going to have to like kind of get the word out. It's a new group. I've been blown away by the demand from our work by the constituents. The number of site visits. I'm probably averaging. It's slowed down a little bit, but I would say it's been about an average of 2 to 3 a week. We are going out to a community, looking at an issue, and assessing an issue, working closely with city or county staff, regardless of whatever jurisdiction it was in. There's a lot of interest. There's a lot of need for it. So I think that try to create the name and the demand. That was like out of the box.
You started out alone, although you had a wonderful board, and now you're not alone. Tell us how you've grown.
Yeah. So I'm very excited. So we have 2 great new team members, and I'm excited to see what we'll be able to do over the next 18 months with them. So Christina Alexander, she came to us from the governor's Office of Service, and spent the past year as an employee of the Office of Service, and just blew me away.
She wasn't just a fresh out of school type person. She had a lot of experience, right?
Yeah, she's an
attorney.
Yeah, she was an attorney. She was in the AG office for Virginia, state of Virginia. Then worked up at the Under Armour, the distillery there. She was their AG. But
and she did the service year with the governor. Yeah. That's amazing.
She's been fantastic.
So the year ended, and of course you hired her.
And thankfully we were the
director of what, operations?
Yeah, director of operations. Correct.
Okay, good.
And then Gabe Cohey, as many folks know in this area, he led a lot of the restoration programs at Maryland DNR. Applied for this job as another of the DNR transplants, just like Chris and myself.
Has he started?
He starts on Thursday.
Oh, awesome.
And he will be fantastic.
Exciting.
Yeah, also ran a nonprofit prior to coming to DNR.
Because I was wondering, like, how are you going to manage like $40 million of projects and do all the other stuff? Yeah, good. Yeah, I'm glad.
One of the jokes at DNR is because I was always focused on the economic side. They used to call me a science-tician, like, don't take him out to try to ID birds or fish. Gabe is he will be the person out in the field, be able to do designs. He's fantastic.
Awesome.
So be a great addition to the team.
All right. So I would say that I don't know what your expectations were, but I think you've met and exceeded them. You have met and exceeded my expectations. I didn't think that it was possible to get so many projects going this quickly. Okay, I lied. One more question. If I come back and interview you in 5 years, I guess I'll be a reporter at that point because I'm not going to be the county executive in 5 years. But whatever my next career is, what are you going to be? What are you going to be bragging about?
3 things. 1, hopefully City Doc will be done.
Mm-hmm.
I would have learned how to use QuickBooks by then. And then we've kept Teresa Sutherland as chair because she is amazing. But I know her time's coming up.
The chair of the board. Teresa Sutherland.
Our success I can contribute to her.
Really?
She is fantastic.
Well, she was the county auditor for a long
county
time.
Auditor, city administrator. Has been probably one of the most impressive human beings I've met in my time in work. She's been amazing. So my hope is kind of our initial grant portfolio will be done. I promised you we would kind of show proof of concept. Mm-hmm. So kind of that first 1 to 3 years, let's show we can get projects on the ground and take advantage of this historic opportunity we're in with all the federal dollars out there. So like Cars Beach, the EV infrastructure projects, model building and resilience standard codes for Anne Arundel County and the city, Glen Burnie Town Center, Fort Meade. I think long term, like in that 5-year period, I'd love to be able to have transition away from relying solely on grants to kind of a scalable revenue strategy. I would love to get to a point where we could advance the right type of that's equitable and a transparent strategy, but for private shoreline restoration. I think that is 90 almost 95% of the shoreline in Anne Arundel County is privately owned and across the bay. I think we can be a model for the entire Chesapeake Bay region on developing a strategy that is fair and equitable. And then hopefully we'll have that resilient and ready Anne Arundel, that portfolio of projects that's repeatable, is built on a model that built on itself, and have that up and running in 5 years. So those are my goals.
Well, I feel like we're really lucky in Anne Arundel County to have you. They're the really smart people out there who like to create stuff, and that's what we needed. And you mentioned wanting to be able to be a model that others can do, and I always say Anne Arundel County is kind of a microcosm of the country in a lot of ways. Demographically, politically, and so if you figure it out, it'll happen all over the country, the world, and it'll be a better place.
Well, thanks for your support. I appreciate it.
All right, thanks.